I'm sure most of us can look back over the course of our life and pinpoint some of the biggest financial mistakes that we've made up until this point. And generally, when we go on YouTube and we're searching for financial content, a lot of that content is focused around how someone made it to the finish line, how they hit their goals, and how great things are since they've been able to do that. Well, in today's video, I'm going to be going over some of the biggest financial mistakes that I made over the course of my life. And I'm sure some of you will be able to relate to a few of the items that I'm going to cover in today's video. All right, so let's go ahead and let's just jump in and cover some of the major mistakes that I've made over the course of my life. And coincidentally, most of these things happened whenever I was in my 20s. See, when we're younger, we often think we know everything. We make these financial mistakes, and some of us don't recover from those mistakes. But fortunately for me, I was able to turn things around and get myself on track financially to get me to where I'm at today. So the very first financial mistake that I made was getting into credit card debt. Now, I've talked a lot over the course of 2 years of having this channel about how I got into credit card debt in my 20s. I was a young kid that stepped onto a college campus. I had no idea on how to create a budget. And on top of that, the things that I was charging, I didn't comprehend that 1, 3, 5 years down the road, I was still gonna be paying for things that I don't even remember that I bought. And what made things so much worse is that a lot of the things that I was charging on those credit cards at that time had 25% plus interest. Think about that for a minute. You go out, you buy something for $50 or $100, and you've got 30% interest on a credit card because you charge something completely ridiculous on your credit card. And what made things much worse is that I was paying the monthly minimum on those credit cards, which means it was gonna take an eternity for me to get out of debt. I remember having a credit card bill that was around $150 a month was the minimum. And when I paid that monthly minimum, I mailed the check, because back in the day, we didn't really have automated payments over the phone. We wrote checks and we mailed those in. And when I'd get my next bill, I would see that my bill only went down maybe $8 to $12, which means the majority of the money that I was sending in to pay that credit card was going to pay interest. I was never going to get out. And when I was young, I didn't think about that. I didn't care. I didn't worry about it, because I was going out and I was having fun and I was buying things that I didn't even need to impress people that I didn't like. And it took me a really long time to get out of credit card debt. Now, I've made several videos right here on this channel where I went over a few of the strategies that I implemented in order to get myself out of credit card debt, but it took me a really long time. I want to say I was about 27, 28 by the time I was able to get out of credit card debt. And mind you, I started college a little bit late. I started college at around 20 years old. So by the time I finished college and got my first real job, it took me about 5 to 6 years to pay off that credit card debt. And when I look back at that right now, I think about all the wasted money that I sent in on interest. And a lot of things that I talk about on this channel is to try to prevent you from falling into those same traps. Now, some of you may be in your 30s, you may be in your 40s, and you're in that exact credit card debt. Now, I would recommend that you go back to my channel and you review some of the videos that I made on some of the strategies that I use to get out of that debt to help you get yourself out of credit card debt, because it is a painful process. Like, being in credit card debt and having that interest weighing on you every single month seems like you're never gonna be out of it. You're never gonna get out of it. And I know today, some people will go out and they'll maybe try to get into a debt consolidation program or a credit specialist or something like that to where someone can help you get out of debt. I may make a future video on why I think that's a bad idea. Leave a comment down below. Let me know if you want me to make a video on why I think credit repair specialists and debt consolidation specialists are a bad deal. Let me know if you'd be interested in seeing a future video on that. But that's my very first financial mistake that I made, which happened to be in my 20s, and it prevented me from being able to actually start building wealth early on. Now, the second biggest financial mistake that I made, which also happened to be in my 20s, was buying cars. Now, I wasn't buying brand new cars, I was buying used cars that were decently expensive. And at the time I was doing 60-month loans on each one of those cars. We didn't have 72-month loans when I very first started to go out and buy cars. So I was getting in and out of a car every 18 to 24 months. Some of those cars had negative equity on them, and I drug those to the next car, and to the next car, and to the next car, and so forth. And what that did is that robbed me of my ability to actually start building wealth. And, today car payments are well over $500 a month. And to me, that's insane. Right now, I have a 2018 Tesla Model S that's completely paid off. I'm not worried about any of the political blowback or who supports who. I don't care about any of that. I bought that car back in 2020. I bought it used. I've had it for almost 5 years now, and I plan to continue to drive that car for a while because I'm enjoying not having a car payment. It's paid off. And again, I'm not getting involved in any of that political banter, that political BS that's going on. It's not for me. I sit on the sidelines on that. But one of the biggest things that happen whenever you have a car payment for 8, 10, 12 years straight is you rob yourself of the ability to use that money to help build wealth. So what I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna get on an investment calculator, and I'm just going to calculate how much money that I could have made from paying car payments over a 10-year period. Because when I got my very first car that I had a payment on, I was about 24 years old and I actually had car payments for at least 10 years. So I'm gonna use a $500 a month car payment for over a 10-year period to see how much money that I was actually paying towards a vehicle that I could have been using to build wealth. I'm not gonna be including the cost for gas, the cost for maintenance, the cost for insurance. I'm just gonna use around $500 figure, and that's gonna encompass all of those things, right? So it could be a little bit more, it could be a little bit less, but based on how much the average car payment is today, it's likely gonna be well above that $500 number. So I'm gonna go on my calculator here. So I'm just gonna say it is a $40,000 vehicle, and we put $5,000 down. So that's gonna be our starting amount here. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna do this over a 10-year period. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna go with an interest rate of 5%. Interest rates are hovering between 6 to 8%, depending on whether or not you're going to a credit union or if you're going to a traditional bank. But I'm just gonna use 5%. And that's gonna be compounded annually. And we're gonna do $500 per month for the car. And that's gonna be paid at the end of each month. So we're gonna calculate this. So what we see here is if that money were invested with $5,000 down, $500 a month at 5% over a 10-year period. So that's about how long I was paying car payments. I would have had a total of over $85,000. Now, a couple of things to mention here is that 5% return on an investment is fairly low. That's probably what we're looking at in today's day and age in 2025 with the market pulling back and uncertainty. But the market generally returns between 8 to 12%, and I generally use 10% as my average. So this is cutting that in half. So over the course of a 10-year period, I could have had over $85,000 invested in the stock market. But instead of that, I have a car that's 3 to 5 years old that's worth probably 50% of what I paid for it. So a majority of the money that I was paying for car payments, especially in my 20s, could have been used to invest. And that kind of robbed me of my ability to actually start building wealth at an earlier age. Now in my 40s, I have a much more stable job, I'm much more stable financially. If I wanted to go out and buy a new car today, new to me would be used still, it wouldn't hurt me much financially because I've set up things in my financial life that I'm always going to be able to invest a certain amount of money every single month in my personal investment account as well as in my 401k account. But it absolutely prevented me from starting to build wealth, especially in my 20s. Buying cars, especially when you're young and continuing to trade them, is typically not gonna be your best bet. It's generally the reason why most people can't get ahead financially is because of what's in their driveway. The third financial mistake that I made happened in my early 30s. I had just got my first real promotion. I almost doubled my yearly income, and what came with that was lifestyle creep. I started to live not necessarily above my means, but I was spending more money than I needed to on a monthly basis. Now, it wasn't as bad as things were as when I was doing that in my 20s, but I started making more money. So I thought, well, I had the car, right? So I had to go out and buy a little bit better car. I was going out and I was buying better clothes and I was taking better vacations. And at the time, I didn't really see anything wrong with that because I still had enough money to invest in my 401k. I still had enough money to invest in my individual brokerage account. But one of the things I really wasn't thinking about at the time is it robbed me of my ability to invest in other assets, such as buying a house or starting a business. I was just focusing on, hey, I'm making more money. I have more money to spend, so why not do it? Because I'm still able to take care of my debts. And I think in a small degree that was okay. But when I look back to that right now, I start to think, man, how much more could I have had I not went out and bought those things that I didn't need? I mean, I think that's the biggest question that a lot of us have to start asking ourselves. And this is one of the sneaky things that happen to us as we start to earn more money. We start to spend more money, right? That's why they call it lifestyle creep. And it wasn't until around my mid-30s until I realized that making small financial changes can have a big impact in a short period of time. Because I can tell you, based on how I've changed my lifestyle and how I view things, I now believe that most people don't have an income problem, they have a spending problem. Now, does everybody fall into that category? Absolutely not, but a majority of people do. I truly believe that. All right, so those are the 3 biggest financial mistakes that I made over the course of my life. Now, I could have mentioned several more things, but I just wanted to hit the highlights on this video, some of the ones that stuck out to me the most. So what do you guys think? What are some of the biggest financial mistakes that you've made over the course of your life? And I hope that this video can help to open your eyes to some of the things that I had to actually go through, and maybe it'll prevent you from getting into credit card debt or getting in and out of vehicles when you absolutely don't need to, especially when you're young and you haven't had an opportunity to build up any wealth to where you can go out and do what you want to do from a vehicle perspective.